Here at 10 o'clock, the future of golf is about to look drastically different than it did this morning. The PGA Tour and Saudi Arabia's LIV Golf have agreed to merge to create one global operation. Now, as part of the deal, the two sides will immediately drop all lawsuits against each other. The announcement comes a year after LIV began, which created a firestorm in the golf world and pit PGA players against the Saudi-backed league and the players there who left the PGA Tour to play for LIV. And they were no longer allowed to play in the tour and were criticized by the PGA commissioner for taking money from a country with a history of human rights abuses. Some players even saying today they felt betrayed by the announcement. And for much more on this massive merger, we now want to bring in Dr. Angeline Close Scheinbaum with Clemson University. So, Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. I think first and foremost, for a lot of viewers there at home, they're trying to figure out how exactly did this merger happen? Because it seemed like just a couple days ago, these two entities were enemies, and now they're becoming one.
Absolutely. Well, I will say I was shocked just as much as many people were, because as you correctly stated, it went from the vibe being you can be proud to be a player for the PGA, but not the LIV. And there were some very serious things that could happen to players that did defect to the LIV, such as not racking up some of their points for the Masters, etc. But what seems to have happened is, if we notice that litigation has been ending now, is that with this merger, the proposed antitrust lawsuit brought on will come to closing. So it's really two parties coming together for the globalness of the sport.
And you mentioned the globalness of the sport, but a lot of it has to do with money as well. So how is the money going to be figured out between these two when it seemed like so much that the LIV kept pushing tens of millions of dollars towards these players, and now the PGA is coming alongside of that? So how is the money going to be figured out between these two?
Correct. So what seems to be happening is PGA, first and foremost, is a nonprofit right now. So what will be happening is a completely new entity, of which one will be the CEO, one will be the chair of the board, and coming together and bringing in multiple sporting organizations within golf. And PGA right now might be, say, a $1.5 billion asset with tournaments and media rights and other asset to it. But what we see going on now is that the Saudi-backed LIV has, $620 billion in a public investment. So what we can see happening is these entities all coming together, and the LIV will back this with some of the public investment funds. And what we can also see is that there would be proposals coming in for anything that needed to be happened to improve the game of golf, that most of that money in the future, it would be coming from the LIV aspect of this new deal.
Okay, and part of that money too is those players. We had several players stay at the PGA Tour, right. Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy. They went ahead and stayed with the PGA Tour, but you had guys like Phil Mickelson, Brooks Koepka. Exactly. They took tens of millions of dollars, Phil Mickelson about $100 million to go play there. So now you have some of these players, the PGA, saying, I didn't accept that money, and now I'm just left with empty pockets. So how are they going to figure it out with some of these players who stayed loyal to the PGA?
And I think you just nailed it right there when you said loyal. And if you kind of go back, let's say Tiger Woods, for example, because he's the most prominent figure in golf, of course. So when he was offered this ability to come over to LIV, rumors have said anywhere from $700 million to even $1 billion, right? He has said that he is going to stay loyal to the PGA. And this is nothing against the LIV Tour, but he wanted to stay loyal to the PGA. So I do think that the consumers will remember that happened. But with respect to some of these others, I do think that because this merger will be happening and there's a new entity, those players will not be left empty-pocketed. They will be reaping in most likely much more prize money.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much for your insight. It is quite the merger to follow, and we follow it very closely. Again, thank you.
Thank you for having me.